Hello again, this is Geoff from Film Seizure, and I'm just welcoming you to part 2 of our 3-part, 3-day, 10th episode extravaganza, whatever you want to call it. Yesterday, if you listened to yesterday's episode, you know that we talked about Friday the 13th from 1980. Well, today we are going to continue that and talk about Friday the 13th Part 2. But again, just a little bit of an explanation about what you're hearing here and why we cut this up into 3 parts. When Jason and I started Film Seizure, we were still trying to figure out how we wanted to present each episode, how we were going to handle sitting down, watching the movies during the course of the day, and then talking about them. Well, we did the Friday the 13th episodes as one sit down, one conversation, and we realized that once we were starting to get to pretty close to 3 hours, we decided to cut them up and to release them on this week in particular, because this week there is a Friday the 13th. As a matter of fact, it's tomorrow. So we thought we would do this just as kind of a little special thank you as a 10th episode, kind of, I guess a benchmark, if you will, or something like that, where, hey, we've made it to 10 episodes, and we'll thank you for that by releasing these never-before-heard pilot episodes that we did for Friday the 13th Parts 1, 2, and 3. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to those two a-holes, Geoff and Jason. Speaking of myself in third person there, but as we continue our discussion of the first 3 Friday the 13th, we will pick up here and start talking about part 2 from 1981. Let's move on to
part 2.
Part 2. So why don't you hit us up with what's going on in part 2?
Oh, right. So part 2, it starts with the recap of part 1, and that was kind of like a 70s, 80s things with those early sequels where they felt the need to kind of remind you of all the shit that happened in the previous movie, and I think part of the reason for that is because home video wasn't as prevalent. Like, maybe it's quite possible when you see part 2, you haven't seen part 1 since you saw it in the theater, right?
Yeah, so you do there is actually a kind of a side story here, not to kind of interrupt that, but here's when movies were made and sequels were made within a year. Like, my dad always talks about the first Bond movie that he saw was From Russia with Love. But he had heard and knew how popular Dr. No was. He saw Dr. No as the tail end of a double header with From Russia with Love being the primary. So when they re-released movies like that before VHS, and now by 1980, of course, VHS was out, but it wasn't as popular.
It hadn't quite exploded yet.
Right. So you had these kind of recaps and things like that would tend to happen with, because, there could have been kids that have gone or that heard about Friday the 13th, never got the chance to see it, turned 17 or 18 or whatever, went to the movie theater to see part 2.
Right. Yeah. And then they get to see the beheading, and they get to see all of that cool stuff that they heard about. Yeah. So seeing it now, it feels belabored. It feels a little like, oh man, I mean, yeah, we get it. We just saw it, but there's a couple other things here at play that makes that recap, I feel, a little unnecessary. And I think it's what we were talking about earlier, where what if every Friday the 13th movie is just a story in the legend? It's a campfire tale. Right. And if that's the case, then you don't need to see what happened last time. You just need to know and understand what the people in this new movie know, right?
Right, and this ends up creating a what's the word I'm looking for? It's a because there's a scene later that does the same thing as the opening, which almost makes you think that the opening was tacked on.
Right.
Yeah, it's
absolutely.
what's the word I'm trying to think?
I don't know. I would rescue you, but I can't. I don't know the word either.
Yeah. It's but anyway, go ahead.
But yeah, so that, like you said, there's a scene after the recap and after you kind of meet your initial cast of characters. There's a scene around the campfire, and the new head counselor who's training this new batch of camp counselors at a
Paul is his name.
Yeah, at a campsite that is not Camp Crystal Lake, but close
it's
by.
Adjacent.
It's adjacent to it.
It's
right.
adjacent for Jason.
It's adjacent to Jason.
Yeah, yes, it's adjacent to Jason.
Adjacent to Jason.
Because Camp Blood, as Camp Crystal Lake's nickname is Camp Blood. It is off limits, and there's just a little measly chain.
No, between two trees.
Yeah.
Don't step over that. It's like into the sycamore trees,
right?
But yeah, so he's telling the story that of what he knows and understands of the legend of Jason around this campfire, and it's a whole ploy to scare them all to not go to Camp Crystal Lake, and they even have Stu jump out and scare everybody with a spear. You know, it's classic campfire tale stuff.
And I love and the one girl.
Well, your girlfriend.
The cutie, and this one that wears the poop brown underwear.
We'll talk about that. Yeah.
Because sexy in the 80s was heavy sweaters and poop brown underwear.
We'll talk about that later here in a minute.
But she is into this fucking story.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, she is into it. And behind the scenes, I mean, she is, into it.
Yeah, she said she never went to camp before. And she was totally enthralled by the Legend of Jason story. It's so funny and cute. But yeah, I mean, I feel like the more effective way to start this movie would have been to maybe start there.
They just wait for part 4 to start there.
Yeah, right.
But anyway.
So anyway, but yeah, this is where the timeline starts to get a little questionable. This is where
supposedly the timeline. Okay, so this is the timeline as we're told.
Yeah.
The opening with Alice, which recaps the first movie, and she gets killed, which I have asterisk, remind me to come back to the survivor girl being killed.
Oh, I totally forgot to even talk about that.
Well, no, that's fine, because that's the part that we kind of feel like was tacked on.
Yeah, for sure.
So that is supposedly 2 months after part 1.
Yeah.
And the main meat of the movie, the main plot of part 2 is supposedly 5 years after part 1. So here we are now, 1984.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah, that's not. But
it's the future.
It's the future, but that's good because it's 1984 until 1984.
That's very true. Yeah.
But anyway, so that's the timeline that we're presented.
Yes. So yeah, we'll briefly talk about the Adrienne King tacked on sequence. We kind of joke about that because she said in the first movie that she was from California. Yes. And so is she living in California now? She's like having this nightmare in her bed as she's recounting all the events of part 1. She's reliving this nightmare. It's totally unnecessary.
We've got steps. We've got shots of feet are walking towards her house.
But if you have to recap part 1, it's an effective way of doing it.
It's fine enough.
Yeah, it's totally fine. And but she opens up her fridge. She wakes up. She opens her fridge. Mrs. Voorhees' rotted head is in there, and she gets killed by Jason.
Yes.
So
it's kind of a ripoff.
It's kind of a ripoff. It asks lots of questions. So did Jason hitchhike across all of America to go kill Alice?
Was he just carrying his mom's head? I mean, I want to be the guy who offers a lift to a guy with a bag on his head who's carrying a head.
Yeah.
A full-size head, not a shrunken head.
He's a freak show too. I mean, maybe he's probably wearing the pillowcase on his head.
Right, he's got to be wearing the bag on his head.
How did he do this? So we kind of joked that this would make a great Adult Swim cartoon. So don't rip that off, I guess, or rip it off. We'd watch it.
Well, hey,
we'd watch it.
Timestamp here. We got. Yeah, this is our TM, our trademark, our registered trademark.
But shit, fuck it. If you made it, we'd watch it. So, but the Adventures of Jason hitchhiking across America with his dead mom's head in a bag and a pillowcase over his head. But anyway, she gets killed, dispatched. Then we meet our new cast of characters. Then we have the campfire tale.
Yeah, and this is the first movie of the series that offers up something that I feel becomes a trope in these movies, and in particular, just about every other horror film until Nightmare on Elm Street. And that is, the sex is at the forefront of this movie. The first movie, yes, there's kids going off to fuck. There's, Marcy and Kevin Bacon fuck.
Yeah.
And I say Kevin Bacon because if I were Kevin Bacon, I totally want to date that girl.
Oh, and we forgot to mention Kevin Bacon's bulge in this movie.
Oh my god!
It should have gotten its own casting line.
Yeah.
Like,
he's wearing Speedos and fuck, man.
It's like ridiculous.
He was truly nuts about it.
So yeah, I mean, the men were just as objectified. Let's just leave it at that. I mean,
okay.
There was a very clear Speedo ball shot.
In the first one, sex was there, but it was not at the forefront. At the forefront was a revenge story. Was a thriller nature type of movie. Part 2. Dude, the titties are popping.
Oh, sure. I mean,
there is people want to fuck in this movie.
There is a heightened sexuality.
Yes,
for sure. I mean,
down to the point where a girl is wearing half shirts, barely covering her boobs.
I mean, her pants, her shorts don't fit. Her ass cheeks are hanging out of her shorts.
I mean, poop brown underwears.
Okay,
we'll get to that.
We'll get to that. I feel like this was the hottest cast of them all. Geoff doesn't necessarily agree, but it was hot, and I think part of that feeling is because of the heightened sexuality.
Yeah, I mean, this movie is. I mean, every movie after this, the sex is at the forefront, maybe even at the forefront above the terror aspects. This is where it kind of starts to become more of a sexual romp.
But what's funny about that though is that there really isn't all that much more nudity than the first one.
No,
you've got Mickey Mouse girl, Kirsten, what's her name? Kirsten Baker, who it's full frontal. I mean, you see her 80s bush and everything.
Yeah,
which is hot. But that's the only nude scene in the movie.
There's not a outright sex scene like
the sex scene that do have there's no nudity in it.
Right.
And it's between like a couple already. They're like So they're not even looking to hook up. They're just already in a relationship.
Yes.
Yeah. And they still get killed for it.
Yes. Although Paul and Jenny, I think, have a sex scene that's not in the film. Because when Ralph is watching him and Ralph gets killed.
Oh yeah, probably.
They're making
out. No, you're right. Yeah,
but Jason's not targeting them yet.
Right.
And maybe he just thinks, hey, those are adults.
But again, that's very tasteful.
It is. There's no nudity. I mean, the main girl. Again, I mean, there is no main girl in any of these movies that goes nude. Not even in the later shitty ones.
Yeah.
That's all tasteful for the main girl. Now, there are the girls who are there to show their boobs, and I thank them for their service.
Yes.
Yes,
indeed.
And I salute them. But this one, it is far, far more sexualized. And so, really, this movie also... Okay, well, let's talk about Jenny, the main girl.
Yeah. Amy Steele,
who is fantastic in this movie.
She's really good, yeah.
And you can see, I mean, she is not quite as cutesy and innocent as Alice was in the first one.
She's very
she's adult.
She's very sure of herself and very adult. Yeah. Yes. But at the same time they introduce her as kind of a flake.
She is a little bit. She's late to work.
Right.
Her car is a fucking disaster.
Her car's a disaster. Yeah.
She's sleeping with the boss.
Yep.
Which is fine. I mean, obviously Jason was kind of cool with that for a little while.
And we know that she's a psychology student.
She is a psychology
getting an advanced
major.
degree in psychology.
So that means she's probably in her mid-20s.
Right.
Or getting close to her mid-20s.
Right.
So she's a little bit older than most of the girls that you see in these movies. And she looks more capable. She looks a little tougher. She's slightly more tomboyish, I would say. Still cute, but slightly more tomboyish. However, we talked about this. She's a little bit almost misused.
Yeah.
She becomes a survivor girl by circumstance,
right,
not by capability.
Right.
Alice was capable.
Right.
And we'll talk about Chris, who's the survivor girl in the third one, who has a different arc.
Yep.
So yeah, let's talk about Jenny's arc here.
Well, I mean, it's kind of it's there, exists, but it's like you said, it's by circumstance. It's she's presented as all right, just any other girl. Honestly, you're not necessarily sure she's even all that meaningful until the last act. Honestly, I think. I mean, she has a moment in the second act when they go to the bar. The bar,
and she's asking about what people really would expect from Jason,
right?
Which makes it sound like she is thinking about what he's thinking about.
She shows a very keen sense of empathy.
Yes, and is showing off her psych degree.
Yeah, well, exactly right. I mean, she's analyzing the situation,
right?
And she's treating the campfire tale as reality.
Yes.
Like if this is true, it's almost like a curiosity to her, but it's more than a curiosity because I think she's also disturbed by it.
She's disturbed by it because Jason is, and also could she be saying, well, wait a minute, what would you expect this guy to be like?
Right.
And so you're demonizing him, but he maybe didn't have any kind of a choice to be this way.
Right.
So yeah, it's that empathy.
Yeah, she's showing a lot of empathy, which she uses to great effect in the third act. So they do a lot with very little time with her character.
Yes, they do, which is good, but I think it diminishes her character slightly.
I also agree.
She's you
never see
loved her because she's the first person to take on Jason, but the story doesn't really earn it.
Right.
And I hate to say that because I mean, she is one of the first things I think of when I think of Friday the 13th. It's like when I think of the non-Jason characters, I might actually picture her in my head before I even picture Mrs. Voorhees.
Sure. Yeah.
Because she's such an iconic first combatant of Jason.
Absolutely. I mean, the image
and the way she defeats them is pretty great. Yeah. But that's we'll get to that.
Well, I think we're close to that already. I mean,
I guess we just should say that let's kind of go through the kills here real quick because there's some good ones. There's one good one in particular. There are more off-screen deaths in this one.
We counted 3 at least, I think.
There's at least 2. We don't see
Ned. Wait, he's first movie.
Ned's the first movie. So in the second movie, okay. So let's kind of run down the characters real quick. There are a ton of camp counselors in this movie. Half of them survive. Jason really dropped the fucking ball on this one.
He should have attacked that fucking bar. How great would that have seemed?
Yeah, it would have been like a part 8 moment.
Well, it would have been like Nightmare on Elm Street Part 2 when Freddy attacks the pool party.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
It's so good.
Yeah. So, yeah. Hey, bitch. Jason does talk in this one. Sort of. He grunts and he winces when he gets hurt in this, which is the only time you ever hear him make any noise. Or at least, no, that's not true, because I think in the third one he kind of makes a noise.
He does,
But anyway, so you got Mickey Mouse, which is Kirsten Baker, who is most of the time completely and totally burying her midriff. not wearing a bra.
She's my favorite. She's so lovely. She dies off screen.
Yes, yep. She dies off screen. Poop brown underwear dies off screen. Although you see their reaction to seeing somebody.
Yeah.
But you don't
see them die.
You don't see the insertion of a killer weapon.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess you could say that I guess they do die on screen. The sex scene couple, that was a cut scene where you see them die much more effectively.
Yeah.
But they right. I guess they die on screen technically.
Yes. Yeah, because they get shish kebab.
They get shish kebab.
So you have young girl, young guy. Yeah. Young guy is Geoff. Young girl calls Geoff a chicken shit the whole movie.
Yeah.
It was just fantastic because
the paper boy. He's a news.
He's a newsie.
He's a newsie.
He's got the newsie hat.
Buy me last paper.
Yep.
Shut up, chicken shit.
Let's go to Camp Blood, chicken shit.
Step over this barbed wire.
We're in Crystal Lake all of a sudden. Then there's Mickey Mouse, who's Kristen Baker, who's got a half shirt. At one point in time, is wearing long john top that's cut off the midriff, which is insane.
It's the only time I've ever seen it.
I've never seen. I've never seen.
It's amazing.
That, and it's great.
Yeah,
it is great. And I don't think she wore underwear in the movie. Oh, yes, she did once. But not in the skinny dipping scene. No. She just
trout.
Yeah.
Yep.
There is the guy who likes her, who was in what was the chopping mall?
Oh, Russell Todd. Yeah.
Russell Todd.
He dies on screen.
He gets his throat slit.
Yeah, he's hung
upside down. He gets his throat slit. Kirsten Baker comes back, finds him, screams, turns around, has a reaction to the audience.
But and we see her until the end.
That she's killed, which you find out that she is because she's just a heap in Jason's shit shack.
His shanty shack. Yeah.
And next to the shrine to his mother.
Yeah.
So the young girl and Geoff get shish kebabbed in bed. They have sex. You have guy in wheelchair who gets the best, one of the best deaths ever.
Yeah.
A lot of people did not like the guy in the wheelchair.
It's the best to date. I mean, to that date, to that point.
Oh, to that
point, it's the best death.
And
probably through the first three at least.
Definitely through the first three. Although there's one that contends. We'll get to
absolutely, yeah.
So then, actually, there's two that contend.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah,
there's quite a good. There's a few good ones in the
third one.
Yeah.
Then, so he gets a machete to the face, and then gets kicked downstairs in his rolling wheelchair.
Yeah.
And it freeze frames on that, which is great. Some people really didn't like that, but I say.
It was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre kind of deal too.
I mean,
you had
it's Sally's brother.
Francis from Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
It's Sally's brother. Yeah, Dennis Hopper's nephew.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Then there's the girl he likes, who I like.
Yeah.
Who is the worst flirt? Like, seriously, how am I not with this girl? Because I am also the worst flirter in the entire world. So I am a disaster at this as well.
Let's do
this because I love this girl.
Because she doesn't go into town to party.
She wants to hang out.
She wants to hang out with him because nobody wants to see a drunk in a wheelchair, as the guy said.
But she's like, I kind of want you to finger.
But it's pretty clear at that point she's into him. Yeah.
Yes.
So she stays behind. She stays behind, and she's the worst flirter ever. Like at one point, she flirts with him by telling him they should play electronic hockey on these little handheld.
Yeah, because she says all I am interested in are your fingers. Something
right.
Fucking you're getting something,
finger bangs, yeah.
But then she hands him a fucking
because his penis might not work. Yeah.
Well, I think he even said that it. Yeah, I mean, it's heavily implied
that his penis
that he is. I mean, not only is he paralyzed from the waist down, but his legs don't work, but also his ding dong.
So they play electronic hockey or whatever this is, and she's like kind of ramping up the tension, but really poorly. Finally,
the way that I would.
Yeah. And he isn't catching on because she's really shitty at flirting.
I can feel her pain.
And finally, though, she just like kisses him.
Yeah, she's like, let's do this.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go change.
I'm gonna
so
go
she's
change.
wearing she's wearing, I think it's a purple long sleeve shirt that's kind of tight. Like you see it, I mean, you get the nice impression of what she's all
like
about.
Maybe some tight jeans or something.
And tight jeans.
Yeah, which she's actually looking pretty sexy.
She's got a little hair clip in.
Yeah,
she's super cute at the very least.
So really, what they've done here is they've written a scene that separates them.
Yes.
They had to figure out a way to separate them. She's going to go get herself cleaned up, which is ludicrous.
Yeah,
what they actually have her do.
Just go at it, guys.
Yeah, so she goes back to her dorm. She goes back to her dorm, and she takes her top off.
Yes, and she's wearing a bra, so she's not she's not nude.
But she's like, oh, you could go back probably just like that, and that's
because it's a nice satin bra. She's looking really cute.
And so what does she do? Cute. She puts on a wool scratchy sweater, like a heavy sweater.
Now the sweater does not go all the way to her waist, but it's kind of like a Christmas sweater.
It's still pretty big. Yeah, it's kind of a Christmas sweater. I mean, what she was wearing before was better.
100%.
So she's wearing this wool sweater. Now we're thinking, all right, well maybe if she just goes back in that's it. Then that's all right. That's hot.
But she takes off her pants.
But then she takes her pants off.
And she's wearing black panties.
She's wearing black panties. But before you even see her black panties, she pulls out the panties she's going to wear, and they are these poop brown, like satin panties. They are the least sexy panties. Not the least, but, but in the conversation. They're in the conversation for the least attractive panties.
Why couldn't they be like lace black? Right. Even if they were lace brown, or lace beige,
I have no idea who made that wardrobe decision, because it's horrendous.
I mean, they're briefs. I mean, they are certainly not like grandma panties.
Sure.
I mean, so I guess they saw it and they thought maybe they're not actually brown. Like maybe the way that the color in the film makes them look brown, but maybe they're maroon.
I don't think so. Maybe.
But I think they were actually brown.
They look brown.
I think what she wears with her pink and light blue and white Christmas-like sweater and poop brown undies, she is 1981's idea of how a cute girl sexes herself up.
I guess.
And it is disastrous.
Well,
now on top of that,
it keeps going though. Yeah, it keeps going.
Because so she puts on her sweater. She puts on the poop brown
and you see like the underwear she's wearing. They're nice, sexy, like black underwear briefs. You know?
So she puts a little bit. She dabs a little bit of perfume on.
In her cleavage. She
does that behind her ears, and on her cheeks, down her cleavage, and then she stops for a second, thinks about it, and then puts a little inside her panties.
Which I don't know about that idea. I mean,
well, she only wanted his fingers. She didn't want him to go down on.
That's true. But still a little weird.
A little weird. Then she has to go out to her car for something.
Yeah, I don't remember why.
I don't remember exactly why. So you think that she's on her way back to the guy. So she just slips her moccasins back on. Yeah. So now moccasins are fine. Whatever. And if girls, you think that that's hot, girls are listening to this. But girls, if you think that moccasins are sexy, I mean,
or if your man thinks they're sexy, then by all means,
have at it. And if he thinks they're sexy, now you know why, because of this scene.
I think that moccasins really are usually in the conversation.
You know what I'm thinking?
Sexy clothing apparel.
120,000%. If she threw on a pair of heels, she's sexy now.
Well, even heels, seal heels, sure, but she wouldn't put on heels. That would have been ridiculous. Moccasins make more functional sense. She's got to wear something. The moccasins, I'm not all that.
At that point, don't wear any shoes.
Moccasins, I'm not all that upset about.
Don't wear any shoes. But it doesn't matter.
It doesn't fucking matter. Because the whole point that she's doing this is ridiculous.
Yeah. So she goes. Yeah. And also futile in the end, because the guy gets the fucking machete to the face.
Right.
Rolls down the. But okay, so she goes out to the car for something. It starts raining.
Yeah.
So now she has to put on one of those shitty ponchos.
Yeah.
So now she has a poncho, a sweater, wool, shitty, thick sweater, poop brown underwear, and these shitty moccasins. But that's not what she comes back to the house in. No. She puts on baggy pants.
Yeah, she puts on pants.
Then fuck, you just ruined everything. You might as well just stayed there.
She put on more clothes.
Yes, every turn she put on more clothes.
It's absolutely bizarre.
She went away cute. to sex herself up.
Right.
And you're thinking, ooh,
and she came back like lounging on the couch watching Netflix and chill, man. Like,
she came back like she's been in a relationship with the guy in the wheelchair for 5 years.
Yeah, but it's too late anyway, because by that point the guy in the wheelchair has had one of the most spectacular death scenes in the whole franchise.
Yes.
Yeah.
She dies.
Yes.
Question mark?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't see
that was off screen too.
Right. I mean, like, you see her discover what she thinks is Geoff and I'm gonna call my boyfriend chicken shit all movie in bed, asleep. She goes in, and this is a good reveal for Jason. He pops up in the bed, wearing his bag, and she's like, ah! And she's got a great scream.
Yeah, she does.
She was talking about that at Horror Hound, and it's like, yes, you do.
Yeah.
So so she gets backed up into a corner and dies. She finds Geoff's body, but she dies. I'm assuming knife or pitchfork to the gut.
Yeah, something like that.
That's what's kind of implied.
Yeah.
But so anyway, so she's dead. Serves her right. You don't wear what you wear to try to sex yourself up for a guy that was already into you, just dressed as you were, as your cute self was.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Yeah. But
God damn it.
at least maybe they could have had like some sexy time before they died.
That would have been nice. I mean, she needed to redeem herself. She was such a bad flirt. She was.
And she probably died a virgin, because I don't think.
I can't imagine that she was getting. I mean, there's a reason why when you're a bad flirt, you don't get laid.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason why.
Anyway, so
okay, so now let's get into the final act.
Yeah.
At the bar, half of the counselors, more than half the counselors, are partying at the bar.
Yeah.
They're too drunk to leave.
Yep.
Paul and Jenny return.
Yep.
After psychoanalyzing Jason Voorhees, which is set you up for our big chase at the end. It's less of a cat and mouse and just a straight up. They walk into a room. Jenny has the famous line of, "There's somebody in this fucking room."
Yeah.
And Jason attacks Paul, which leads to our chase. So kind of pick up from there, if you will.
Yeah, all right. Well, you got I guess, sort of, Amy Steele really likes to talk about the fact that she's under the bed when Jason's in the room, and she sees the rat, and then you see the shot of a pool of urine.
Yeah, that's weird. She gets chased into this room, and she's kind of barricaded herself in this room. Yeah. So she hides under the bed and make it look like, I think, she ran out the window.
Yeah.
Jason comes in. She sees this rat. So yeah.
And somehow, like, the pool of urine betrays her or whatever. But it's kind of silly. Like,
I kind of feel like it's an insert shot because people didn't believe that he knew where she was.
Right.
That something had to give her away.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Typically, like, Michael Myers could pretty much figure out that Laurie Strode was in the closet.
Right.
Because she's not jumping off the balcony of the house. So he could figure that shit out. Jason needed to be tipped off.
Right. So it's kind of like a kind of a stupid little insert. You can argue, and I think it's a good argument, that she just got back from the bar. She's had some beers. She's now being chased by a fucking killer.
She got to pee, man.
She's got to pee. She's also terrified. Like your bowel, your bladder may release itself at that point. Like,
I would mind instantly. The moment I saw him jump up and take on, if I were her, my boyfriend, I'm pissing myself. Yeah. I'm done.
Right. So anyway, so that happens. It is. It's like a chase at that point. I think what's compelling about this encounter is at the end where they actually kind of face off. We're in Jason's shanty and his shit shack, and
he killed a cop there. There was a cop who discovered the first time we see Jason.
Right.
A cop has come to bust Geoff and I'm going to call my boyfriend chicken shit all movie.
Right.
For sneaking in the camp.
He chases Jason back to his shack.
Yes,
and he runs a lot more than I would expect from a chubby policeman.
In an old middle-aged chubby policeman. And
So I mean, literally, this is a shit shack. It kind of looks like a slapdash kind of. He built it himself.
Yeah.
But there is a toilet in there.
There is.
There's not an outhouse.
It had plumbing at some point. Yeah.
Plumbing.
Yeah. So there was a structure there at some point. Yeah.
So it makes me wonder.
Jason's fucking like can install in
well,
septic tank.
Jason proves to be pretty.
Yeah, I doubt he dug a septic tank, Geoff.
Well, he seems to be pretty resourceful. But I get the impression that this shack was meant to be where Ned, Marcy, and Kevin Bacon were killed in the first movie.
Yeah, it could be.
I think now because there was a bathroom in there, it was a living space of some sort. That's my impression. I could be wrong, but that was kind of what I always thought. It's like, oh yeah, that's weird. But it's like 5 years later, it's gone to shit. Jason's moved in, so Squatter has turned it to shit.
Right.
So yeah, so he finds he hits the cop in the back of the head with the claw end of a hammer, which is a really cool death.
Yeah.
I like that. Caving in the back, yeah, that's good. So anyway, so that's the first time we saw not only the shit shack, we see the cop react to something inside the shack, and now we are led there at the end of the movie.
Right, and we see Amy Steele, our final girl, Jenny, our character. She runs into the shack. She's in that room where now she discovers that the head of Mrs. Voorhees, Jason's mom, is there. It's all like decayed and shriveled up. And gross.
It is not the same head as the beginning of the movie, which also indicates that that was that was just inserted.
But the sweater is there too that his mom was wearing when she died, which is kind of interesting because that means that Jason probably had to dig that up. Maybe she was buried in it. He had to retrieve that sweater in some way. Which
because it looks dirty and shitty. I mean, it kind of makes you wonder if like did he take it off her body? Did he dig it up in the
But at this point, Jenny.
Well, he also got the head, so
she's kind of putting it all together. She's like, oh wow, and this is where she shows a lot of intelligence. And she shows off her psychology degree or her advanced degree in psychology that she's getting. She's like, oh, everything I'm thinking about Jason. She's kind of putting things together, and she realizes that this is Jason. He's idolized his mother. He probably did see his mother be killed. So she puts on the sweater. She tries to trick Jason into thinking that she is his mother. This is
one of the most famous scenes from the entire series, I would say.
Yeah, and it's really well done. Like she is
talks like him,
talks like her.
Yeah,
she has the inflection, same inflection, which that's kind of coincidence, I guess. But yeah, she sort of is channeling him, and they do a really clever thing with inserting shots of Mrs. Voorhees.
Yeah.
Betsy Adams is
Betsy
Palmer. Yeah. Talking like to Jason as well. So you can tell that Jason's confused. Maybe this is his mother.
This is a chance where you see the POV from his point of view again.
Yeah.
As it's fading between Jenny and Mrs. Voorhees. It's kind of interesting because he's seeing both and he can't figure out what it is.
Yeah. So it works for a little while, but then Jason sees his mother's actual corpse head.
Yeah.
And realizes, it kind of snaps him out of it, and he realizes, no, this isn't my mother, and it's he comes at her. Mm-hmm. There's a clash of weapons, and eventually
Paul
comes back. It's a distraction.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's able to cleave Jason with the machete.
Basically separates his shoulder.
Neck and shoulder. Yeah, right. And he goes down.
Yeah.
Right.
And he goes down. So we think they win.
Right.
Yay. So now we get into another segment here where the end of part 1 was a dream sequence, essentially, where baby Jason comes out.
Yeah.
Now they decide to copy that formula here.
Yep.
And so Paul and Jenny go back to the cabin. They think everything's going to be all right. we get a little bit of a. I'm not even going to go into the whole story with the dog, but they get it's that little misdirect of, oh my God, somebody's at the door.
Yeah.
Turns out to be a friendly, essentially, and they think, oh, everything's great, and then boom, Jason comes
crashing through the window
and grabs
without his sack
Jenny.
head.
Yeah, he's like all messed up looking
and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, and so he grabs Jenny, flash to white, and now she's being loaded into an ambulance, and she's asking where Paul is.
Yeah.
And so this leads to one of the greater mysteries of the entire series, which is what actually happened to Paul, because we do see earlier in the movie that Paul is injured at the very least by Jason before he chases after Jenny. In fact, Paul kind of takes the brunt of the first attack on them, and that's what causes Jenny to be able to barricade herself and pee her pants.
Yeah.
And so now the question about Paul actually gets answered in part 3.
Yeah, we I feel like we definitively put that to rest.
Yeah, now some people will still probably argue, maybe our count's wrong. I don't think it is.
I don't think it is.
But we'll get to that when we get to part 3. But it is very interesting that it's hard to, like, it's easy in part 1 to say, we know this part's the dream sequence. Like, we know what's real and what isn't. We know that Alice cut off Mrs. Voorhees' head, got in the boat.
Right.
The next morning is the dream sequence. Right. So they said they pulled her out of the lake. So she is unlikely Jason came out because Jason was a little boy.
And they would.
He's not a little boy.
And the 2 cops on the shore would have seen it. So
right. So assuming she tipped the boat over, fell in, they pulled her out.
Right.
So we understand what's real and what isn't there. With part 2, it's harder to determine where that is, because you can't determine what's real and what isn't, except for the fact that we know that Jason didn't pull her out the window. Also, thanks to part 3, we kind of see what happens to Jason.
Right.
But where does that begin? Where does that delineation of real and not real happen?
Yeah.
Is it after she cleaves Jason? Is it after they get back to the, I mean, so the biggest question has always been what happened to Paul. But if you pay enough attention, I think part 3 answers it. Now, I may have missed a part before what we heard. But I'm pretty sure.
I think he's our first final boy, if you will.
Yeah, because at the start of part 3, not only do you get a recap of part 2, because these movies love to recap their previous ones, but it shows that Jason is moving after he got cleaved. It does not show him get up, so he doesn't go and pull Jenny. Plus, it's like the next day.
Yeah.
The news report, which is Steve Miner making a cameo appearance.
Yeah. Was that 8 people were killed?
8 people were killed, and we did the count.
And it was 8.
And Paul is not.
Right.
Yeah, so Paul survived.
Right.
Unless they mention that nobody survived and they just fucked up their own body count.
Yeah.
Or they didn't find Kirsten Baker's body because he took it to the shrine.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, they would have found it. They counted because there were 2 bodies there. There was Kristen Baker and there was one of the males. I can't remember which one was also there at the shrine.
Oh,
there were 2 bodies at the shrine. Those were found, no question.
Yeah, one of the other guys was there. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So anyway, so the count indicates that Paul is, but that's a big mystery that people like to debate.
Yeah.
And they like to debate: did he actually save her? Was that how much of that last scene was?
Yeah, and I think
was dream versus not.
I think I like to think, and I think we're probably in the right, that he survived and that he was saved by Jenny.
Yes.
I mean, she saved his life.
Right.
She cleaved Jason.
He did take the distraction.
Sure.
And he was probably injured in the distraction because the whole thing came down on him.
Yeah, most definitely.
But then she ended the battle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that.
Yeah.
So fuck you and this goes against feminism.
Right,
Dude,
yeah.
Cool.
I mean,
Hope you're turning in your grave.
That's
bitch.
two. Oh man, but that's two final girls in a row in this series that I think show a lot of what you don't even see in today's horror films necessarily. Like,
yeah, because they are set up from the beginning to be tough, and
right.
They say why they're tough, not do.
They go out of their way
toughness.
to like, I don't know. It almost feels forced. But
yeah.
But in the Friday the 13th series, I don't really feel like there's a forced final girl until the third one, and we'll talk about that here in a moment. But I feel like that one is a little forced.
Yeah, no, it is a little. It's a little.
And I'm not a huge fan of it.
All right, well, that closes out part 2 of our 3-part, 3-day, 10th episode extravaganza as we release this pilot episode to you. As you can clearly see there, I'm get pretty hung up pretty quickly on poop brown underwear. I'll be honest with you, that still has not gone away. I still think about that every night. Oh, yes, I do. Anyway, check back tomorrow. Tomorrow is Friday the 13th, and we will wrap up this 3-part 10th episode by releasing episode 10.3, Friday the 13th, part 3. We did watch it in 3D for better or worse, but check back tomorrow to hear what we had to say about that. And again, follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all those good things. If you have any suggestions for us, please feel free to contact us at filmseizure@gmail.com, and we look forward to seeing you back here again tomorrow for part 3. Thank you so much.
Now, okay, moccasins are fine, whatever. And if girls, you think that's hot, girls are listening to this.